We'll begin today at the bottom of Daf Tezvav Amud Beis. We learned the Mishnah yesterday already, but I want to read over the Mishnah quickly because the Gemara is going to give 4 different pshatim for this Mishnah. Okay, Zakta Mishnah Chamisha Tamin. There are 5 cases where it's a tam, which means you pay chatzi nezek in the beginning, and only later you pay nezek shalim. That's the halacha of a ox that gores or damages in any way which is wild. And then the Chamishu Modim. There are 5 cases which you pay right away nezek shalim as a muad. So a behema ain't a muedes. The behema will not be a muad in the beginning. And what are the 5 cases? Lo ligach, lo ligoy, lo lishoich, lo lirboitz, lo levite. These are 5 different cases of the animal damaging in a wild way. Okay, that's the 5, which is a tam. Now, the next part of the Mishnah, in the simple pshat, is going to tell me what are the 5 cases where it's a muad right away. Hashem, muedes lechol isarayla, when an animal eats, and it eats normally. So when it's eating, so then it pays nezek shalim right away. That's one a muad. Another one, harega muedes lishbar b'derech hilucha, if it tramples with its feet. A third one, v'shoyer amud, a shoyer that already gored 3 times. A 4th one, v'shoyer hamazik b'rishus hanizik. This is significant. This is what the Gemara is going to focus on. The shoyer that was mazik, even if he's mazik with his kerem, with the horns, and usually you only pay chatzi nezik. But, says the Mishnah, if it was done in the private domain of the nizik, so then you pay nezek shalim right away. And then v'ha'adam, a human being also that's mazik, always pays nezek shalim the first time, he's also a muad. And the Mishnah says there's other kind of wild beasts that if they belong to you and they're mazik, you'll be chayiv right away nezek shalim. Hazev, v'ari, v'adoy, v'anemer, v'abardles, v'hanachash, harei muadim. If they cause damage, you're chayiv right away nezek shalim because it's to be expected and you have to guard them for this. Rabbi Lazar, however, Rabbi Lazar says, Bizman shehem b'nei tarbos, if they were trained or domesticated, eina muadim, then they're not muad in the beginning. But v'hanachash, a snake is different. A nachash is muad leilam. A nachash is a muad right from the beginning. Okay, so let's see the Gemara here. The Gemara will ask that seems to be a clear contradiction in the Mishnah. How is that? Zak the Gemara midiktani Hashem muades lechoil. The Mishnah says when it talks about the 5 muadim. So the Mishnah said that if the behemah is eating, so then it's a muad right from the beginning, and you pay nezek shalim. Where are we talking about? Where did the behemah eat? So let me remind you the halacha that we learned before in this Masechta a few times. Shein v'regel, you only chayiv if it happens in the rishus of the nizik, in someone's private property. If the shein v'regel, he's eating in the rishus harabim, potter, because the pasuk says ubir b'zdei acher. So now when it says here in the Mishnah that shein is muedes lechol and you chayiv nezek shalim, where did this take place? Miklal, the b'chatzer nizik askina. We must be talking about that this happened in the private property of the nizik. The katani. Now, what does it say earlier in the Mishnah? What does it say? Behema eina muedes l'shalem kulei. That the behema is when it gores with its horns or when it damages in other wild ways. So then it does not pay full pay. Avol chatzi nezek mishalemes. It only pays chatzi nezek, and that is when the behema damaged in a wild way. So now, Mani, whose opinion is this, that the Mishnah is talking about, that this is happening even in the Rishus of the Nizik, but still the Mishnah says that when the Behemoth damages in a wild way, and it's Keren, or the Tailda of Keren, so you still will only pay Chatzi Nezek even there in the Nizik's private domain, Rabbanani. This is the Rabbanan's opinion. The Amri, the Rabbanan say, Mishune Keren. Keren is different than all other ovis nizikin, that b'chatzar nizik, even if it damaged in someone else's private property, chatzi nezik with the mashalim, you only pay half. That's what we see from the beginning of the Mishnah. Now, Emes however, what does it say later in the Mishnah? When the Mishnah counts the 5 muadin, there it says sheira muad, and then it says v'shayir hamazik b'rishus hanizik, a shayir that's mazik, and that means even the shayir that's mazik with its horns, which is unusual, which is this keren. But if it's in the rishus of the nizik, if it's in a private property, then you are going to be chayiv to pay right away nezek shalim v'ha'adam, and then it says the same with ha'adam. So now over here, also Rav Tarfon. Over here it's saying that if it happened in his private property, you do pay nezek shalim in the beginning. That is Rav Tarfon's opinion. Rav Tarfon says even though keren usually pays chatzi nezek in the beginning, but if it's in the nizik's private property, you have to pay right away full pay. The Omar of Tarfon said, Mishune Keren B'chatza Nizik, that Keren is different when it happens in the property of the Nizik. Nezek Shalom with the Mishalim, you pay Nezek Shalom right away. So our question here is, Reishe Rabbanon, the beginning of the Mishnah that says that even in the Chatzar of the Nizik, you only pay half. That's the Rabbanon's opinion. V'sefer Rab Tarfon. And the sefer that says that you pay full pay if it's in his private property, that's Rab Tarfon. So the Gemara here, as I mentioned, has 4 pshatim. So first the Gemara says, this is in fact the case, that the Mishnah is not all one Tana. The Ha'amalei Shmuel Rav Yehuda, Rav Shmuel told Rav Yehuda, Shinina, sharp one. Shveik Masnisin, leave the Mishnah. Don't try to make the Mishnah all one opinion. V'sa Basroi, and follow what I tell you. Reisha Rabbanon, the beginning of the Mishnah is according to the Rabbanon, and V'sefer Rab Tarfon. And the end of the Mishnah is Rab Tarfon. There's no other way to explain this Mishnah. That was Shmuel's pshat. Another pshat the Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar Mishnei de Rav Amar. Rabbi Lazar said we can learn this Mishnah according to Rav that Kula Rab Tarfoni. The entire Mishnah is all the opinion of Rab Tarfon. And again, what's Rab Tarfon's opinion? When the keren is mazik in the rishus of the nizik, even though usually it only pays chatzi nezek, but in the rishus of nizik it does pay nezek shalem. So what are we talking about over here? In the reisha of the Mishnah, Reisha b'chotzer hamiyuchedes lepeides le'echad mehen. In the Reisha of the Mishnah, we're talking about a place. True, it's the nizik's private property, but what is it his private property for? It's not fully private for him. It's only private in the sense that he is the only one that has the right to have his peides there, and therefore, for shame, if the animal walks in there and eats, so then it's going to be chayev to pay because for the peides that it ate, it is the nizik's private property. But however, this same property is a place where both the mazik and the nizik, and it's public, it's open for other people to bring their oxen in there. So for as far as the damage of the keren is concerned, so over there, it's like a reshus harabim. It's an open place that everyone can bring their oxen in there, and therefore, for the keren, you only pay chatzi nezek. So this fits with Rab Tarfon's opinion. According to Rab Tarfon, you pay for the keren nezek shalem if it's a private property. But regarding the keren, it's not a private property because everybody's allowed to bring their oxen in there. And therefore, the Mishnah and the Reisha said that you pay for the shvarim chatzi nezek. So the Gemara spells it out. So as far as what the beime eats, it's private because only the nizik is allowed to bring his fruits in there. But if the ox walks in there and gores with its horns, for that it's considered to be reshus harabim because everybody's allowed to bring their oxen in there. So for that you only pay chatzi nezek, as the halacha is if it's not in the private place of the nizik. That is same chatzah, same chatzah. There's one person that is allowed to store his fruits there, but the shvarim, the oxen, other people are allowed to bring it in there as well. But the Gemara asks on this pshat, Rav Kahane, so Rav Kahane said, Amrita l'shmaita kamei Rav Zvid min Nerda. I said this pshat of Rav in front of Rav Zvid from Nerda, v'amali, and he told me this can't be. You can't say this. Mi motzes moik misla kulik Rab Tarfon. How could you say that this Mishnah here follows Rab Tarfon's opinion that says that when the animal damages in an unusual manner, which is what keren is, but as long as it happens in the rishus of the nizik, you'll be chayev nezek shalem. How could that be? Because Hakatani, the Mishnah clearly says when it talks about the animal eating, Hashem uedes lechol esaroila, that the shame when the animal eats, but what does it eat? It only eats something that is food for it, that's fit for food, not when it eats in a wild way, when it just bites and breaks. When it eats what's roi for it, so then the Mishnah said that if it ate in the property of the nizik, you pay nezek shalem. What do you see from this Mishnah? That roila in, if it ate what is fit for it to eat, so then it pays nezek shalem. But she'ein roila, if it's eating, just biting and breaking, so then it does not pay nezek shalem. Loi doesn't pay. But the question is, Rab Tarfon, if you just explain that this whole Mishnah follows Rab Tarfon's opinion, ha'ama, but Rab Tarfon holds mishuna keren, that keren, even though usually it only pays chatzi nezek, but it's different when it's b'chotzer nizik, when it's in the private property of the nizik, that nezek shalem, you do pay nezek shalem. So if so, nezek shalem mishalim that is, you pay nezek shalem. So why does the Mishnah say that when the animal is eating, that only if it eats normally, do you pay nezek shalem? But if it's just biting and breaking, you don't pay nezek shalem. Why not? According to Rab Tarfon, if it's in the private property of the nizik, even if it breaks, you should still pay nezek shalem. So the Mishnah cannot be Rab Tarfon. So the Gemara says, Elo lo'olam rabbanani. Really, this whole Mishnah here is following the opinion of the Rabbanon, which say that if an animal is mazik with keren, you always pay half, chatzi nezek. It doesn't matter if it's in the reshus harabim or if it's in the reshus of the nizik. So, but he says, v'chasuri mechsere, this Mishnah is missing words, v'achi ketani. You have to learn this Mishnah differently. And the Mishnah is read as follows. Chamisha tamim. The Mishnah tells us that there are 5 different cases where the animal, when it damages, it's going to be a tam. You pay in the beginning chatzi nezek. And the Mishnah spells out what those 5 cases are. Right, as the Mishnah says, ligach, ligoif, and so on. And then you have to add into the Mishnah, what are the chamisha mu'adim? Then the Mishnah says there are 5 cases where the behemah is a mu'ad, meaning it pays nezek shalem. When is that? V'im huadu. These same 5 cases that the Mishnah just mentioned, if it happened already 3 times, then chamishta mu'adim. All these 5 cases, ligach, ligoif, lishoich, lirboitz, and livoit, these are all damages that are happening in a wild way. But once the animal did it already 3 times, then they become mu'adim. That's the 5 mu'adim that the Mishnah is saying. And then the Mishnah continues and says, V'shein v'regel. Then there's when the animal eats or tramples. Mu'adim etchilosan. They will become a mu'ad from the beginning. But when the Mishnah brings here shein v'regel, this is not the 5 that it meant. The 5 mu'adin is referring to the 5 that the Mishnah says before. Those 5, when it happens the first 3 times, it's a tam. When it happens after 3 times, then you become a mu'ad. Then the Mishnah says shein v'regel will be a mu'ad right away from the beginning. Right, and then when the Mishnah says, the next few words, that the way it was written in our Mishnah, after this, the Mishnah says, after it mentions shein v'regel, what was the lashon of the Mishnah? V'shoir hamazik. It says after that, v'shoir hamuid, and then it says v'shoir hamazik b'rishus hanizik. What does the Mishnah mean by that? So the Gemara right now explains what the Mishnah means by that is that v'heichon ha'ada'asan, and where is shein v'regel going to be chayiv when it says in the Mishnah shoira mu'ed? Shoira mu'ed is not another case. Shoira mu'ed is saying, and where are you chayiv if your behemah ate or trampled? Where is the shein v'regel? B'chatzar hanizik. That's only in the chatzar of the nizik. So when it mentions v'shoira mazik b'rishus hanizik, before we understood that that's referring to keren. That when it's mazik with its keren in the rishus hanizik, that you pay nezek shalem. Now the Gemara is saying no. The Mishnah here is not talking about the shayr that damages with its keren in the rishus hanizik. All the Mishnah is saying is this that I just told you regarding shein v'regel, that you have to pay nezek shalem. Where is that? Where does shein pay nezek shalem? That's in the rishus of the nizik. As the halach always is, only in the rishus hanizik you pay nezek shalem and not in the rishus harabim. So there's no contradiction here in the Mishnah at all. The Mishnah is never saying that when the behemah is mazik with its keren, that it pays nezek shalem in the rishus hanizik. No such thing. The Mishnah is just talking about shein v'regel. So the Gemara asks on this pshat, maskefla Ravina. Ravina asks on this pshat, this can't be, because hakatani lekaman. There's a Mishnah later in the second Perek that actually follows up to what it says in our Mishnah, because there the Mishnah says sheir hamazik b'rishus hanizik keitzad. What's going to be the halacha with a shayr that gores with its horns and damages in the rishus of a nizik? Keitzad. How will we paskin? What's the halacha? And that's the Mishnah where it brings the machlokes of the Rabbanon and Rab Tarfin, whether you pay nezek shalem or chatzi nezek. Now, what that Mishnah, as I said, is following up, is explaining what it says in our Mishnah. So what does this mean? If you're going to say in our Mishnah, when it says Shayr hamazik b'rishus hanizik, it's talking about keren, it's talking about when it gores with its horns. So then, Mishamachi katani keitza. So it makes sense that the Mishnah in the second Perek is referring back to what it said in our Mishnah, and it's coming to explain what the animal, what you would be chayiv if the animal gored with its horns in the rishus of the nizik. But if you're going to say like the Gemara just tried to say, that over here when it says Shayra Mazik B'Rishus HaNizik, it's not referring to Keren. It's referring to Shein. It's saying that Shein is Chayiv Nezek Shalom in the Rishus HaNizik. So then my Ketzad. So how in the Mishnah in the second Perek, which is referring back to our Mishnah, how could it say Ketzad talking about Keren if in our Mishnah when it said Shayra Mazik B'Rishus HaNizik was not talking about Keren? It was talking about Shein V'Regel. So therefore Ravina says slightly different. We have to learn our Mishnah as follows. Chesuri Mechseret is missing in our Mishnah, V'achi Ketani, and we have to learn our Mishnah as follows. So at the beginning, Ravina says the same as the Gemara said before. When it says our Mishnah is counting 5 tamin and 5 mu'odim. What are they? Chamisha tamim hein. There are 5 cases where when the animal damages, so it's like keren, it's wild. So therefore it's a tam, as the Mishnah counts them. And then v'im huadu. Chamishtan muadim. Then what are the 5 which are the muadim? These same 5 which are tam. If it happens 3 times, then it becomes a muad. And then when the Mishnah continues and says afterwards, we read the Mishnah afterwards as follows: V'shein v'regel, shein and regel, muadim it chilasan. They won't be a muad after 3 times. They're a muad for the first time. And then afterwards, when the Mishnah says Shoyer Hamuid, what does the Mishnah mean by that? V'zehu Shoyer Hamuid. When it mentioned before that only after 3 times does it become a mu'id, this is the Shoyer Hamuid of the Torah. When the Torah says that a Shoyer becomes a mu'id, this goes back to what the Mishnah started off with. After it damages 3 times, it becomes a Shoyer Hamuid. And then afterwards, when the Mishnah says V'shoyer Hamazik B'rishos HaNizik, how do you read V'shoyer Hamazik B'rishos HaNizik? So over here, this is talking about the shoyer that gores with its horns in the rishus of the nizik. But what does the Mishnah mean with this? The Mishnah is not telling you what the halach is. The machloikis Rav Tarfon v'Rabbanan. This case of shoyer hamazik b'rishus hanizik, how much does it pay? Does it pay chatzi nezek or nezek shalim? The Mishnah is just mentioning the case, but it doesn't spell out what the halacha is, because this is going to be a machloikis of Rav Tarfon and the Rabbanan, which will be explained in the Mishnah in the second Perek. But our Mishnah is not saying clearly regarding this Shoyer Hamazik B'Rishus HaNizik that it would pay Nezek Shalim. So therefore there's no contradiction over here. And then the Mishnah continues and says, V'yesh mu'adim acherim kayetze beilu. There are other wild beasts that you'll pay Nezek Shalim right from the beginning, the first time it damages. And that is Hazeh, V'ari, V'adoi, V'abardlis, V'anemer, V'anachosh, all these wild beasts. So you pay for it right away, Nezek Shalim. That's how you read our Mishnah. So it comes out that our Mishnah over here is really following the opinion of the Rabbanon, that even in the Rishus HaNizik, you pay Chatzi Nezek. That's the Reisha of the Mishnah. In the Seifa of the Mishnah, when it mentions Shoyer Hamazik B'Rishus HaNizik, it's not telling you what the halacha there is. It's just indicating that there will be a machlokes of Rabbanon and Rav Tarfon, which will be explained in the second Perek. Gemara now brings a Braisa that basically rephrases what it says in our Mishnah in exactly this way. Tanya Nami Yachi, this is what we learned in the Braisa, Chamisha Tamenein. There are 5 ways that the animal damages and it's a tam. And then the Braisa spells out, like we just said our Mishnah, V'im huatu. If it happens already 3 times, Chamishta muadim, then it becomes a muad. And the V'shem V'regel, but if it eats or tramples, then muadim mitchilasan, it's a muad right from the beginning. And then the Mishnah continues, or the Braisa says that what the Mishnah means is, V'zehu shoyer muad. What we mentioned in the beginning here, the Chamisha Tamin, when it does it 3 times, this is the Shoyer Amud that the Torah says after 3 times it becomes a Shoyer Amud. And then the Braisa says another thing, V'shoyer Hamazik B'Rishus HaNizik. If it gored and it was mazik in the Rishus of the Nizik, what's the halacha there? It doesn't spell out. It just says Machlokes Rav Tarfon v'Rabbanan. We'll see later. This will be a Machlokes of Rav Tarfon and Rabbanan. And then the Braisa says, like the Mishnah said, V'yesh mu'adim acherim. There are other cases which are a mu'ad kayetze beilu, like the ones that we said here, that it's a mu'ad right from the beginning, and that is Hazeh, V'ari, V'adoi, V'anemer, V'abardlis, V'anachosh. They're mu'ad right from the beginning because they're wild. Okay, now the Gemara brings the same pshat, but the way we came to this pshat was with a different question. Ike the Rameluhu Mirme. There are those that asked here first a question. What was the question they asked? Tanan, our Mishnah starts off saying, Chamisha Tamim v'Chamisha Muadim. That there are 5 that are Tam, and there are 5 that are a Muad. So it's saying that only 5 are a Muad. But the question is, V'suleke, why does the Mishnah start off saying only 5? But then the same Mishnah later on says that there are all these wild beasts that are also Muad, so it's much more than 5. V'ha'ikir, Hazeh, V'ari, V'adoi, V'anemer, V'abardlis, V'anachosh. All these wild beasts are also a Muad, so why is it only 5? That was the question that was asked. And on this, the answer was given. Ravin explained, the Mishnah is missing words, and you have to read it as follows. What's the number 5? Chamisha Taminheim. V'im huadu chamishtan muadim. The number 5 was referring to these same 5 that are a tam. When it happens 3 times, you become a muad. That's the number 5. The number 5 doesn't refer to the entire Mishnah. It's only referring to these ones that are tamin, that they become a muad. And then the Mishnah goes on with different halachas. V'shem, v'regel, which are muad mitchilasan, it's a muad right from the beginning. And then it mentions v'zehu shoyer hamuad, what we said in the beginning, this is the shoyer hamuad of the Torah. And then, as we mentioned, v'shoyer hamazik b'rishus hanizik machlokes Rav Tarfon v'Rabbanan, that's when it happens in the private domain of the nizik, when it gores with its horns, that is, in the private domain of the nizik, that's a machlokes Rav Tarfon and Rabbanan. And then v'yesh muadim acherim, there are other muadim, this is not part of the 5 that it mentions in the beginning. There's other muadim, kayetze be'elu, which are also chayav nezek shalem, and that is Hazeh, V'ari, V'adoi, V'anemer, V'abardlis, V'anachosh. That's how you read this Mishnah. Okay, this is this Mishnah, the lashon of the Mishnah is not clear. The Gemara clarifies this a few times. Okay, now the Gemara gets into the details that are mentioned in the Mishnah. So what was one of the cases that it said that is unusual for an ox to damage when it lies down or it crouches down and it breaks vessels when it does that? V'lei lirboitz. Lirboitz, when it crouches down, so then it only pays chatzi nezek, because that's unusual for this ox to do this. So regarding this, Rabbi Elazar said, that's only if it breaks large vessels. That's unusual for it. If it lies down and it breaks small vessels, so then that's actually something which is ordinary for the animal to do, and you're going to pay nezek shalim. So the Gemara says, shall we say that we have a braisa that's a raya to what Rabbi Elazar said? Because the Braisa says, a beheme muhedes lahalech kedarka. The beheme is a mued. It's normal for it to just walk on its way. V'leshabet, and while it walks, it breaks. So lemayach, and it crushes. As a adam, it could crush a person. Whereas a beheme, it could crush another animal. V'esa kelim, and it could also crush vessels. So you see over here that it's normal for the animal to crush and break vessels. But our Mishnah says that it's not normal. When it lies down, it's not normal. So the only way to answer this would be that our Mishnah is talking about large vessels, and the Braisa is talking about small vessels, and therefore small vessels, it is normal. Says the Gemara, there's no raya from this Braisa. Why? Because dilme minatzad. Maybe what this Braisa is talking about, that it didn't lie down on the vessels. It was walking, and then on the side, by a wall, there was vessels there, and on its side, it crushed it. And that on its side, maybe that's normal. But to lie down, maybe over there, no matter what kind of vessels it lies down, large or small, either way, it's not normal. Ikeda there's another pshat that Rabbi Elazar actually said the opposite. Rabbi Elazar said, when the animal lies down and it breaks vessels, don't think that it's only if it breaks large vessels that it's unusual for the animal to do this. Then it's unusual. But if it's small vessels, maybe it isn't normal. No, it doesn't make a difference. When the animal crouches down and it breaks vessels, whether it's large or small, it's not normal for the animal. And either way, you only a chayiv chatzi nezek because it's a tilde of keren. Now, according to this version, so the Gemara asks, Meisvei, in the Braisa it says that that the animal that crushes a person, or vesa beheme, or another animal, or vesa kelim, it crushes kelim. And over here, the Braisa says that it's going to be chayiv nezek shalem. But if you're saying that no matter when it crushes vessels, whatever vessels it is, large or small, either way, it's unusual for the animal. Why is it saying here in this Braisa that you chayiv nezek shalem when it crushes kelim? Don't we have to say that it's talking about crushing small kalim and therefore yechayev nezek shalim? But Rabbi Elazar doesn't make this distinction. So on this the Gemara answers, there's no question from this Braisa, because I could tell you, Omer Rabbi Elazar, dilme minatzad. Over there, it crushed it from the side. When it crushes it from the side, so over there, that's normal for the animal. But if it's lying down on it, either way, you're going to be chayev nezek shalim. The Gemara brings a third version, how Rabbi Elazar said this. There are those that this was asked as a question. Tanan, in our Mishnah we learned veloy lirboitz, that the animal, when it crouches, it lies down and it breaks vessels. So then it's unusual for the animal, and you only pay chatzi nezek. And the question was asked, but Vatanya, in a Braisa we learned to crush a person, or vesabeim vesakelim. When it crushes kelim, then you do pay nezek shalem. So there's a contradiction. And on this, Rabbi Elazar answered like the first version we brought, loy kashe. There's no contradiction. Kam bepachim gedailim. In our Mishnah, when the animal crushes large vessels when it lies down, so that's unusual, and you chayiv to pay only chatzi nezek because it's unusual. And kam bepachim ketanim. If it's small vessels, so then that's usual for the animal to break it when it lies down. And over there, the Braisa is saying that you do pay nezek shalim. Then the Mishnah said, the wild beasts that there are, hazev, ari, v'chulu, and the last one it mentioned in the Mishnah was a bardalis. What is this bardalis? Says the Gemara, my bardalis, what is a bardalis? Amar Rav Yehuda says, a bardalis is a nafriza. My nafriza, what is a nafriza? Amar Rav Yosef, appa. It's an appa. Do you have a translation for this in English? It's, I don't know what this is. It's some kind of something, I don't know. Some kind of a wild animal. Okay, an appa. Rab Meir asked regarding this interpretation of bardalis. Rab Meir, again, Meisver, that is, the question was asked. Rab Meir says in a Braisa, Afat Tzavua. A Tzavua is another wild beast, which is also going to be a muad from the beginning. And Rabbi Elazar says a snake as well. And now, on that Braisa, Rav Yosef explained, Tzavua zuapa. This tzavua, this is the appa. So how can we say that the bardalis is the appa if tzavua is the appa? So the Gemara answers like kasha. It's both the same kind of animal, but it depends if it's male or female. Kam b'tzavua zachar and kam b'tzavua nekeva. It is a difference if it's a zachar or a nekeva. That's the difference. Okay, so it's both a tzavua. The Gemara brings, as we learned in the Braisa, the Tanya, we learned in the Braisa as follows. A tzavua zachar, this tzavua, which is a zachar, it what's the word in English? It metamorphosizes. It changes. Tzavua zachar lacha sheva shanim, after 7 years, nasa talif. It turns into a talif, which is some kind of a bat. And then this atalef lacha sheva shanim, after 7 years, it metamorphosizes again, and nasa arpid. It becomes a arpid, which is I think another kind of bat. And then arpid lacha zayin shanim, nasa kimush. It becomes a kimush. Not sure what that is. Another kind of animal. And then a kimush. A what? What's the kimush?
One of these was a thorn.
Okay, a kimush. La'acha sheva shanim, the kimush, after 7 years, nasa chayach, it becomes a thorn. And then chayach, this thorn, la'acha sheva shanim, after 7 years, nasa shed. It turns into a shindala, the shed. And here, this Braisa mentions another thing regarding a person. Shedrei shel adam, the spine of a person, la'acha sheva shanim, after 7 years, after he passes away, nasa nochash, it becomes like a snake. Now, v'hani mili, when is that said? The loy kara b'maidim. If this is a person that when he davens, he doesn't bow down by maidim to thank Hashem, then his spine becomes like a snake. So it says in the Mefarshim, just like a snake, the snake doesn't recognize Hashem, doesn't thank Hashem. The snake didn't listen to Hashem. It convinced Chava to eat from the Eitz Hadas. So to a person that doesn't thank Hashem for everything that the Eibishter gives him, so his shedra becomes like a snake. Okay, Omamar, the Braisa over here said, that we just mentioned, Rab Meir says that there's another animal which is a wild beast, and you chayiv to pay from the beginning nezek shalim, that's the tzavua. And then the Braisa said Rab Eliezer oima afa nochash, that Rab Eliezer came and added that a snake as well. But not the Gemara asks, Rab Eliezer was brought in our Mishnah. What did Rab Eliezer say in our Mishnah? But v'hanant nan in our Mishnah, Rab Eliezer said, Rab Eliezer oime bizman shehem b'nei tarbus eino muadim. Rab Eliezer made a distinction. A snake is different than all these other wild animals. Why? The other wild animals, it depends if they're domesticated or not. And then he said, but v'hanachash muad la'ilam. A nachash could never be domesticated. The nachash is always going to be wild and you always have to guard it. So how could over here the Braisa say, Rabbi Eliezer says, af hanachash, that the nachash has the same din as all the other wild domesticated wild animals, and there's no difference. Again, if Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah said that all other wild animals could be domesticated, and a nechash cannot. So the Gemara says, you're right, tani nachash. That in the Braisa, you can't say Rabbi Eliezer said, afa nachash, or Rabbi Eliezer that is. You can't say Rabbi Eliezer says, afa nachash, because nachash is not the same as the other wild animals. Nachash is different, nachash could never be domesticated. Other wild animals can be. Mashmul. Nashmul said another halacha regarding one of the animals mentioned in our Mishnah, which is the lion. Ari, this lion, b'reshus harabim. So if it's eating in the reshus harabim, doras va'achal. If it attacks its prey and it sticks its claws into the whatever it's attacking, and even before it kills it, it eats it right away alive, then pater. You're going to be pater for this damage that the lion did in the reshus harabim, and the Gemara will explain why. But if it attacks and rips apart its prey, if it kills it first and then it eats it, that's unusual, then chayiv. For that you will be chayiv. So the Gemara explains. Now again, the explanation of the Gemara here is based on the rule again that we had before, that an animal that eats in its ordinary fashion, shein v'regel, in the reshus harabim is pater. Because the Torah says a bir b'zdei acher. So therefore now the Gemara explains, if it went and it ate up something while that animal is still alive, reason you're going to be pater is kivin dor chele midras, because it's actually, that's what's usual for a lion to eat. It's when what it's eating is still alive. So havalei k'moisha achla peres v'yirakis. So then it'll be like the halacha of an ox that eats fruits or vegetables in the reshus harabim. The havila shein b'reshus harabim. So this is eating in the reshus harabim. The animal that eats in the reshus harabim. What's the halacha? Oh, pater. So therefore it's pater. The same thing with the lion. If it eats in its ordinary fashion in the reshus harabim, it's eating what it's eating when it's still alive. It'll be pater. Taraf. However, if the lion still tears apart and kills first, and then it eats it, lavorchiyo. That's not usual for the lion, and therefore, if it eats in such a kind of a way, it means that it got very wild. And therefore, you're going to be chayiv to pay chatzi nezek for what it did in the reshus harabim, because that's not the regular shein. So that you are chayiv in the reshus harabim. Says the Gemara, Lememre shall we say that it's not usual for a lion to tear apart and kill first and then eat. But Vaksiv, there's a pasuk says, Arya Tairef Badi Guraisov, that the lion tears apart and kills, and then it takes its prey and it brings it for its for its children. So you see that this is normal for the lion. So the Gemara answers, no. The pasuk there is saying Bishvil Guraisav. If the lion is not eating right away, if the lion is bringing it for its children, then it kills first. If the lion though is eating right now, it eats alive. It doesn't kill first. But the Gemara says, it says afterwards in the pasuk further, umechanik, it strangles what it attacks, and it brings it little voice up. It brings it to the female, to the lionesses. So you see that it does first kill, and then it brings it. So again, the Gemara answers the same thing. Bishvil luvaoisav. If it's not eating right away, it's bringing it for the lioness. So then it first kills. Vaita, the Gemara asks the continuation of that pasuk, v'yamale teref chayrov. The lion fills its holes with the animals that it kills. So we see that it kills it first. Again, the Gemara answers the same point. B'shvil chayrov. When it wants to store and bring it in its holes, it kills first, but not if it's going to eat right away. And then the last thing, the pasuk there says, u'ma'onaisav treifa, that it brings into its ma'onaisav, into its dwelling, which into the lion's den. It brings the animals that it tore apart. Says the Gemara, that's b'shvil ma'onaisav. Only what it's bringing into its lion den, that it kills first. But what does Shmuel say? A lion that eats right away, it eats alive. It doesn't kill before it eats. So if it killed before it ate, that's unusual for it, and then you'll be chayav to pay chatzi nezek. But the Gemara asks on this from a Braise. V'hatanya, we learned in a Braise, v'chein chaya shenichnas ala chatzara nizik. If you have a wild beast, and this includes even a lion, that entered into the chatzar of the nizik. Now, chatzar of the nizik is the place where if it eats normally, then it should pay nezek shalim. It's shein v'regel. It's eating in a normal way. It pays for this. So tarfa behema. So if this lion went and first tore apart, it killed the animal, and then v'achla basar, and it ate the meat, mishalim nezek shalim. It pays full pay. So what do you see over here in this braise? That the lion, it says chaya, but a chaya includes a lion. So the lion, when it tears apart and then it eats, it's normal for it. And therefore, this is shein v'regel in the rishus of the nizik, and you do pay nezek shalim. But Shmuel said it's not normal for a lion to first kill and then eat. Answers the Gemara, when this braise says tarfa, what does it mean? Shetarfa lahaniach. It didn't eat right away. It killed and it put it aside. Like we said before, that sometimes the lion, if it's not eating right away, it stores. So therefore it is normal. For the Gemara, that can't be the pshat in the braise, because ha'achla katani. The braise clearly says that it tore apart and it's eating it right away. Answers the Gemara, no, that's not what the braise means. It tore apart, it didn't eat right away. When it tore apart, it wasn't planning on eating. It was planning on storing it, and then it got hungry afterwards, and it decided to eat it. So therefore, you're going to be chayav nezek shalim, because it is normal for the lion to do this. But the Gemara asks, this is a very strange thing to say. Mina yadinon. How do we know what the lion is thinking? That it tears apart, it was thinking to store, and then it changed its mind. How can we determine this? How can we be mechayev the owner to pay nezek shalim? There's no way we would know this. V'oi, the Shmuel nami. Shmuel that says that it's unusual for a lion to kill. Why are you saying it's unusual? Maybe the lion changed its mind. In the beginning it wanted to store and then now it wants to eat. So we can't say such an answer. So again, the Shmuel nami dil mehachiyu. Maybe that would be the case by Shmuel as well. So therefore the Gemara says another pshat in the Braise over here. Omer Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says, let's study in Katani. You have to read the words of the Braise. You have to divide it. How do you divide it? The Braise says Chaya Shenichnasa, and then it says Tarfa Behema. So one point is Shatarfa. You have to read Tarfa as one point, and that's Tarfa Lahaniach. It killed, and it put it aside. So that's normal for a lion to do. So you chayav nezek shalim. And then when it says afterwards Achla, that's a separate thing. Oi, you have to add it over here. Oi darsav Achla. Or it ate, and it ate alive, and it did not kill. So then Mishalem is Nezek Shalom. Then it pays Nezek Shalom exactly like Shmuel said, because this is normal. That's one pshat. Another pshat the Gemara says, Ravina said, Ki ka'ama Shmuel. When did Shmuel say that an animal will not kill before it eats? That's Ba'ari Tarbus. That's a lion that has been already domesticated. This is what Rabbi Lazar said in our Mishnah. The Amar Rabbi Lazar says, Lav Urche. That once the lion is already domesticated, it's not so wild, and it won't kill before it eats. That's why Shmuel said that in such a case, you're going to be chayiv chatzi nezek, because it's not wild, it's not supposed to do this. But the Gemara asks, if we're talking about a domesticated lion, ihachi afil darsa nami l'chayiv. Even if it eats without killing, you should also be chayiv to pay chatzi nezek for that because it's a domesticated animal. And a domesticated animal should not be attacking any other animal in any way, whether to kill it, whether to eat it. So how could you say that this is what Shmuel is talking about, the domesticated lion? Ella says the Gemara, the Ravina, this point that Ravina said that we're talking about a domesticated animal, lava Shmuel itmer. He didn't say this about Shmuel. Ela masnita. He said this about the Braisa that we quoted before. And what he said is as follows. Ki tani masnita. When it says in the Braisa that a lion ate and attacked and killed in the Nizik's property, and you pay Nezik Shalem, what is that talking about? Ba'ari tarbus. It's talking about a domesticated lion. Va'aliba de Rabbi Lazar. And this goes according to Rabbi Lazar. The Amar, Rabbi Lazar says, Lav urche. That a domesticated lion, it's not common, it doesn't attack, it doesn't eat, it doesn't kill. And over there, if it ate in someone else's private domain, you have to pay. So the Gemara asks if that's what the Braisa means to say, but if so, chatzi nezek by l'shlomi. You should only pay chatzi nezek. The Braisa here is saying that a lion that attacks and kills and eats, you pay nezek shalem. But if it's a domesticated lion and what it does is unusual for it, so then you should only pay chatzi nezek. So the Gemara answers the iyayit, but this happened already 3 times. Once it happened 3 times, you pay nezek shalem. So the Gemara asks this: Ihachi, my hide the tanila gabi toiled the shame. If so, this Braisa, why is it a Braisa that said as a toiled of shame? It's not connected to shame, which is something that the animal does, which is usual. Gabi toiled the keren by misne. This should be said as a toiled of keren. So the Gemara says, Kashya, this remains a question in this pshat on this Braisa. What are the differences in the halacha of a tam when the animal gores with its horns and damages the first 3 times, and the mu'ud when it happens after 3 times? So the difference is the following difference. Tam mishalem chatzi nezek. The first 3 times you only pay half, and also you pay migufay. The payment comes from the body of the animal itself, which means that sometimes you could end up paying even less than half if the animal's body is worth less. A mu'ed, mishalem nezek shalem. A mu'ed pays full pay, and min aliyah, it pays from the best. Says the Gemara, my aliyah. What does it mean, the best? Amar Rabbi Lazar says, b'mu'ulisha b'nechasav. You pay from the best of your properties. As we learned before, you have to pay from the idis, from the best of your properties. And the Gemara brings a similar expression in a pasuk, v'cheinu oimer, v'yishkav Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu was laid to rest when they buried him. Im avaisav, together with his ancestors. V'yikpiru b'mayla kivrei b'nei David. B'mayla means in the best place of the best plot. So you see the word Maila means the best, similar to our Mishnah Aliyah. Rabbi Lazar said about that, what does it mean there that he was buried in the Maila? The Maila means it's a mu'ulim sheb'mishpacha. He was buried by the best of the family, Uman Ninu. Who is this? David and Shloimeh. By his ancestors, David and Shloimeh, that's where he was buried. And then it says over there as well, Vayikbiru, B'kivraisav, Ashakara loy Be'ir David, Vayishkivu, B'mishka, Vashamile, B'samim, Vizanim, that they buried him in a place which was filled with B'samim, with spices and Vizanim. So what is this Vizanim? So the Gemara explains, My B'samim Vizanim, Rabbi Lazar Omar, Zini. B'samim means Zini. What does Zini mean? Zini mean a lot of different kinds of B'samim. Rab Shmuel ben Achmeni Yama, what does this mean? B'samim, it means Shekal Hamiriach Behen, whoever smells these B'samim, there was such a powerful smell, Bali de Zima, it could bring a person to even do things inappropriate behavior. That's the solution of Zima that it says over here. Okay, we'll stop over here. The next is a piece of Agadah over here, the end of the Perek. We'll learn tomorrow, Mr. Shem.